Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live, Status Coup. Hope you're having a good day. It is Thursday, June 23rd. The year is 2022. Quite a day, quite a day. It seems that the Supreme Court, I don't know, they're not bashful, and they maybe wanted to get out of the way some of their most egregious rulings before dropping the major bomb that might come next week of overturning Roe v. Wade, which is, as of now, we believe is still what will happen. I did a video earlier on the two decisions by the Supreme Court. For those that didn't see it, I'll kind of break it down. I'm sure by now folks know what the decisions were, but we'll get into it a little more. Also, great news. As you know, Status Coup and I have covered Native American political prisoner Leonard Peltier, who has been in prison for 47 years for a crime he did not commit. He was convicted on shooting and killing multiple FBI agents, even though there was never evidence that he fired at those FBI agents in the 1970s during a shootout at the Pine Ridge Reservation. Well, now Bernie Sanders is on the record demanding his release and for President Biden to grant clemency. So we're going to get into that. And then about 20 minutes or so, I'm going to have a guest, John Russel, who is actually lives in Ohio, does some great stuff on his TikTok. Status Coup is on TikTok now too. And I wanted to bring him on. He did a great video showing how basically the lie that was fed to people in communities like he lives in Ohio, that fracking will be a boom for the economy there and lift a lot of these deindustrial cities that have been destroyed by globalization and offshore trade deals being trade deals that offshore jobs, that it would lift these communities out of economic rot. Well, his videos show it has done nothing but enrich oil companies and investors. He's also going to get into how the white working class and a lot of union folk in places like Ohio are fleeing to the Republican Party and Trump. So we're going to get into all of it. Please smash the like button. Thumbs up right under the video. The more people that press like, the more people that will see this very live stream. Share this live stream if you can, and super chats welcome as always. Let's play just the explanation of what this Supreme Court ruling was, overturning New York's concealed carry law.
Erica, the Supreme Court here significantly expanding gun rights and really expanding the scope of the Second Amendment for the first time since 2008. So this is a 6-3 decision written by the senior-most Justice Clarence Thomas. What it has done is it has struck down a New York gun law. It was a law that restricted who could carry concealed handguns outside the home. It's a law that stood for more than a century, but the court has now said that that law cannot stand and that crucially here, the Constitution guarantees the right to carry a gun outside the home. That's something the Supreme Court has not said before. The court also saying that states are and will be moving forward restricted from the types of rules that they can enact concerning guns. They can have objective rules, but not discretionary rules. So really this decision, it not only strikes down the New York law and 6 other states that have laws that are basically identical to this New York law, but it also puts state laws in jeopardy that are similar to this law, which required people to show proper cause when they apply for permits. And it will allow scrutiny for all gun laws pertaining to everything: assault weapons, age restrictions, restrictions on magazines. So this, while it first of all strikes down the New York law, it's also instituting a new framework for courts to evaluate gun laws all over the country. And the dissenting justices here, this was a 6-3 decision, so the court's liberals dissented. And what outgoing retiring Justice Stephen Breyer said is that this severely burdens states' efforts to curb gun violence, because this will call into question gun laws all across the country. Now, while this did strike down the New York law, there was a concurrence from Justices Alito, Kavanaugh, and the Chief Justice Roberts, and it did say that this holding decides nothing about who may lawfully possess a firearm or the requirements that must be met to buy a gun. So they are saying that there are some limits to this decision, but really, Erica, this decision is wide-ranging. It will call into question laws all over the country, while most immediately striking down this New York law and laws in 6 other states just like it that had very specific demands on people when they were applying to actually get a license for a concealed handgun in public. And again, Erica, this happening in a state where we saw a mass shooting just recently at a Buffalo supermarket, and that have very populated, concentrated areas, like right in New York City, where the politicians there are worried about people having concealed handguns and going into these very populous places.
So that's basically the explanation. And not only does this ruling affect New York, it pretty much affects the whole country, because the Supreme Court essentially is saying states cannot regulate their own gun laws. They are saying essentially that states trying to regulate gun laws or prohibit Americans from legally, protecting themselves, that states can't do that. Only the federal government can, which is kind of insane, considering next week we expect they're going to overturn Roe v. Wade under the opposite argument that only the states can decide on abortion. The federal government cannot. So it seems like there is no consistency. There is no core principle. These are political hacks and operatives wearing robes. It makes no sense, this ruling. And it basically, unless the president, and we don't expect this president to do it, unless the president takes executive actions, which might end up in court and the Supreme Court, this kind of makes it very difficult to envision a ban on assault weapons, high capacity magazines, et cetera, on a state level. So it is just, I don't know what to say other than every shooting is different. Every shooting, there's different factors that go into it. But when you're basically saying anyone could walk out of their house with a gun, and you don't need, as in New York was trying to do, you don't need to show actual, why do you need the gun? Actual cause for having a concealed carry permit, then we're off to the races. Anybody can walk onto a subway with a gun, a train, a bus, you name it. And just a shout out here. Hello from a new Status Coup member, Christina. I was a member a while back, but I paused my membership, just started up again. Welcome back, Christina. Happy to have you back on board. And yes, keep signing up, statuscoup.com/join. I'm currently working on planning a road trip, another reporting trip, but we got to get our member numbers up to fund this, especially since we're going to be driving. And right now it might cost $60 to $70 to fill our tank, which on the road, typically we have to fill our tank, Colin, usually 4 or 5 times. So sign up, statuscoup.com/join. I wanted to play this other clip just to show how just unbelievable this ruling is. Colin, can we play the CNN clip with the 2 legal analysts?
Well, they will try to do more, and they will try to argue that what they're doing doesn't conflict with this new test that's going to look back at traditional history in America. And they'll make those arguments, just like New York actually made those arguments here for this law that had been on the books for 100 years. But it failed. And what had happened up to this point was that lower courts were much more receptive to gun control. After this, lower courts will have no choice. They'll have to follow this kind of precedent.
Here's what I think they might want to look to. So if you're looking at this opinion from the perspective of the gun safety advocates and where do they go from here, there was a line deep in the opinion where it talks about its historical analysis, and it says, but under common law, individuals could not carry deadly weapons in a manner likely to terrorize others. And I thought that was interesting because what's not in the historical part or in the Constitution is assault weapons. And in the Senate bill, they're not including assault weapons. But if I was on the side of the gun safety advocates or the states looking to how they can regulate, that's where I would be looking.
And let's play Jeffrey Toobin, who's not masturbating in this clip, thankfully, because he actually makes a good point that basically what Clarence Thomas, who, if the Democratic Party had a spine, would be holding impeachment hearings for Clarence Thomas, because he clearly was tipping information, confidential information about Supreme Court deliberations to his lunatic wife, Ginny Thomas, who was working with Republicans and Trump to try and overturn an election. You would think that's enough to try impeachment hearings against Clarence Thomas. Apparently not. Sorry for the masturbation reference. Jeffrey Toobin makes a point that essentially what Clarence Thomas and the six conservatives are saying is you have to treat the Second Amendment exactly like the First Amendment. Here we go.
We're going to see and hear a lot more of that in the wake of this decision.
We sure are. And I think it's important to explain Justice Thomas's reasoning, which is, I think a lot of people understand the First Amendment in the sense that everyone knows that you and I, we don't need a permit from the government to hand out a leaflet in Times Square that says Biden for president or Trump for president. The government really is not allowed to regulate speech in this country, except in very, very narrow circumstances. What Justice Thomas says repeatedly in this opinion is the Second Amendment is just like the First Amendment, is that the government may not regulate individuals' possessions of weapons for self-defense, just like they can't regulate the speech of private citizens. That's a very different approach to the Second Amendment and to public safety that the Supreme Court has held previously, and it's certainly a very different approach than the states that are attempting to deal with gun violence are putting forth now. Now, there is this, I think, somewhat bizarre concurring opinion by Justice Kavanaugh where he says, no, there still is the possibility for some sort of background check rules. But that does seem somewhat inconsistent with what the majority holds, even though Justice Kavanaugh is part of the majority. But what's clear, what's entirely clear from today's opinion is that it is going to be much more difficult for states and localities to regulate any sort of gun possession, gun background checks than it was previously.
Yeah. So basically, Clarence Thomas, these gun nuts on the Supreme Court that the Federalist Society, the NRA, and other special interests helped get onto the court. Essentially, what they're saying is well-regulated militia means go get a tank, go get bazooka guns. There's nothing that the Second Amendment actually does regulate for. What they're saying is states, and pretty soon, I'm sure they'll say the federal government, has no place in regulating guns based on the Second Amendment, even though the Second Amendment actually says a well-regulated militia, not individual citizens, even though the Second Amendment was made in a time for muskets, not bazooka guns, where you could go into a school with 375 rounds, which is what the Uvalde shooter did. And by the way, it's coming out now, he started shooting literally within 30 seconds. So a lot of those kids were probably killed very quickly, despite how horrible the police response was. But I want to get to Samuel Alito, who in the leaked draft opinion was the author and had the majority opinion in the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Maybe one of those conservative judges will flip to vote against overturning Roe v. Wade. I'm not holding my breath for that. But Alito authored the majority opinion in the opinion that was leaked. But Alito wasn't very happy after this ruling, even though he was one of the six that voted in favor of overturning New York's concealed carry. He was very, very upset that Stephen Breyer, who's still technically on the court, I think he'll be off the court and replaced by why am I forgetting her name? The new Supreme Court justice. Apologies, I forgot her name. The first black woman on the Supreme Court. He is very upset because Stephen Breyer, in his dissent, pointed out, hey, all these mass shootings that are going on, this majority opinion right now is actually going to make it a lot worse. Let me read Breyer's dissent first. Breyer and the two other judges. Many states have tried to address some of the dangers of gun violence just described by passing laws that limit in various ways who may purchase, carry, or use firearms of different kinds. The court today severely burdened states' efforts to do so. New York's legislature considered the empirical evidence about gun violence and adopted a reasonable licensing law to regulate the concealed carriage of handguns in order to keep the people of New York safe. The court today strikes down that law based only on the pleadings. It gives the state no opportunity to present evidence justifying its reasons for adopting the law or showing how the law actually operates in practice. And it does not so much as acknowledge these important considerations, because I cannot agree with the court's decision to strike New York's law down without allowing for discovery or the development of any evidentiary record, without considering the state's compelling interest in preventing gun violence and protecting the safety of its citizens, and without considering the potentially deadly consequence of its decision. I respectfully dissent. So basically, and by the way, smash the like button. The audience is a little lower today, so let's get the likes up. We got 140 watching. Only 80 of you have pressed that like button. I need every one of you. Please press that like button. Thumbs up right under the live stream. Super chats are welcome. I'll read them at the end, so keep them coming. Thank you. What he's basically saying, to dumb it down, is how dare you, Stephen Breyer, take into consideration the literal mass assassinations that are running rampant in the United Corporations of America. Uvalde, Buffalo, Aurora, Colorado, Columbine, San Antonio, Texas, Newtown, Parkland in Florida. How dare you take into consideration any of the mass assassinations that basically are legalized here in the United Corporations of America? We cannot give the state of New York or any other state the ability to infringe or bastardize the Second Amendment. So basically, Alito was very upset that Breyer had the gall to mention mass shootings and a state's responsibility to protect its citizens. Well, let's read Alito's opinion. Alito blasted Stephen Breyer's dissent. What's interesting to me is he kind of sounds like a Fox News host. Let me know what you think here. He kind of sounds like a Fox News host in this dissent to Breyer's dissent. In response to the dissent, Alito wrote a concurring opinion where he dismissed the relevance of Breyer's mass shooting examples, plus the prevalence of guns in American society. He also took a jab at the now defunct New York law by remarking that it didn't prevent the Buffalo shooters' rampage. Here's Alito. In light of what we actually held, it's hard to see what legitimate purpose can possibly be served by most of the dissent's lengthy introductory section. Why, for example, does the dissent think it's relevant to recount the mass shootings that have occurred in recent years? Does the dissent think that laws like New York's prevent or deter such atrocities? Will a person bent on carrying out a mass shooting be stopped if he knows that it is illegal to carry a handgun outside the home? And how does the dissent account for the fact that one of the mass shootings near the top of its list took place in Buffalo? The New York law at issue in this case obviously did not stop the perpetrator. This is literally the right-wing, Fox News, Rush Limbaugh, name your right-wing ideologue, Wayne LaPierre of the NRA. This is their whole reflexive talking point. Mass shooting? Well, none of these laws would have stopped this mass shooting. Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Oh, well, none of these laws would prevent any of that. It's mental health. It's mental health. We shouldn't bother doing anything. None of these laws would prevent any of that. And he points, in this case, Alito points to the Buffalo shooting as concealed carry wouldn't have prevented that. Okay, so there's no scenario that Samuel Alito could consider where if just anybody could carry a concealed weapon in New York on subways, buses, transit, you name it, that could be a problem, that could create a shootout. But he has to point to Buffalo. And he's basically what he's saying is it's not the Supreme Court's it's not the Supreme Court's role to consider life or death of American citizens. It's not the Supreme Court's role to consider, safety, national security of American citizens, despite the fact that the Second Amendment talks about a well-regulated militia. Well, why would you care about a well-regulated militia? Because you have to have basic safeguards in place in a just society. Now, I'm not saying take everybody's guns. That's not what I'm saying. But even the Second Amendment calls for basic regulations. Basically, Samuel Alito is trying out, I don't know, for a Fox News primetime show there. He sounds no different than Sean Hannity. He sounds no different than anyone from the NRA. And he's basically saying, how dare you, Stephen Breyer, bring up mass shootings? The slaughter of children, the slaughter of grandmas going out for shopping has no weight here in our Republican decision. It's just crazy. And by the way, let's just be clear, because I already started seeing this surf around today online. No, this is not Susan Sarandon's fault. Sorry. It's not Jill Stein's fault. It's not my fault. Frankly, we have a 6-3 Supreme Court right now. If President Obama in 2016 would have showed some spine, right? If President Obama, when Mitch McConnell breached the Constitution, refused to hold hearings for Obama's Supreme Court Justice, Merrick Garland, Obama, basically because it was an election year and he didn't want to fight this because he thought it would rally the Republican base even more, which that was reported as the reason Obama didn't really do much after McConnell refused to allow him a hearing for his Supreme Court justice. If Obama would have fought it, taken it to court, you might have a 5-4 Supreme Court right now. And we have seen when there was a 5-4 Supreme Court with the Republican majority, we have seen that John Roberts, in addition, at the time, it was Anthony Kennedy, but we have seen John Roberts go along with the liberals. We saw it on Obamacare and a couple other cases. So you want to blame someone? Blame Obama. Hey, Joe Biden is president right now. Let's show Colin, Nina Turner's tweet, which I thought was good. Dems have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. As these Supreme Court rulings anger you, as they should, let's demand that the people in power actually do something. That means calling on President Biden, Schumer, and Pelosi to expand the Supreme Court. What a thought. They ain't going to do it. They are not going to do it. So, honestly, I don't want to over dramatize this, but really the importance of this ruling today is less so about New York. It's less so about New York's concealed carry law. What the Supreme Court just greenlighted is the gun lobby, NRA, others, basically challenging any state gun laws. That's what they just greenlit. Based on this precedent, the Supreme Court is basically saying states, unless it's really a particular issue, cannot regulate guns. Don't take it from me. I mean, listen to legal people that have been on TV, in writing today. Really what the Supreme Court did is basically invalidate states' ability to regulate guns, whether it's concealed carry, high capacity magazines, assault weapons, gun shows. And we know that if the state can't do it, well, the federal government's certainly not going to do it. The bipartisan gun deal right now that's being talked about as possibly passing does nothing on assault weapons, does nothing on high capacity magazines, does nothing on the gun show loophole, internet sales. And I don't know, call me a common sense person. When you have rampant societal rot, when you have people being priced out of the places that they live in, when you have people facing eviction, when you have homelessness going up, when you have people literally having to ration certain things now because they can't fill their car for under $80. When you have people, groceries are too expensive, electricity is too expensive, rent, 30 to 40% increases in major cities, increases in rural areas too. Well, what happens when you have that kind of economic and societal issues? A lot of violence and easier access to guns. We are where we are, which is a good segue. great segue. I am delighted to be joined by John Russel. You are an Ohio native. TikTok brought me to you because I've been surfing around TikTok. Status Coup recently joined TikTok, so we're now part of the cool crowd. Your mic is off.
Welcome, and hell of a segue, Jordan.
Thank you. Sorry you had to listen to my long-winded monologue. Everybody, check out John Russel on TikTok. Hey, John Russel, I think is your handle. So I wanted to have you on because there was a particular video you did that was really interesting because I did a disappearing middle class tour a couple years ago where I went through Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. And some of these areas that have basically are the carcasses of deindustrialization. It was really, really like depressing for me. Some of these areas with closed down storefronts, closed down plants, closed down youth centers. It looks like just kind of ghost towns. And you actually did a video basically exposing the fact that you were promised in Ohio and the community was promised in Ohio that the fracking boom would basically bring back some of these communities. And you actually go around showing not so much. I want to get to other issues too, but I want to show some of this video because it's exactly what we need more of. We don't see it in the media. Here's some of your videos showing what you were told fracking would bring versus what it actually delivered.
Visit some old headlines. Fracking may gush thousands of Ohio jobs. The explosion of oil and gas extraction jobs. 280,000 jobs, $6 billion in government revenue. Scratch that, 1 million jobs and $118 billion to the economy. Utica Shale could transform Ohio Rust Belt into Diamond Belt? All right, let's check up on that last one. So yeah, fracking has not turned the Rust Belt into the Diamond Belt, and worse than broken promises, it is holding us back in a lot of ways. 22 Appalachian counties produce 90% of the region's natural gas. I live in one of them. Data from the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis came out on the last 10 years of production in the region, and it ain't great. Over that time, our region's share of national income fell by 6.3%, jobs fell by 7.6%, and our share of national population fell by nearly 11%. So the fracking boom happened as the region lost income, lost jobs, and lost people, which unfortunately isn't surprising. Appalachia knows extractive industry. We built the country. We mined the coal, made the steel, churned out the pottery, made the chemicals. Industries fly in from out of town, they take our wealth, and they leave us with the bag. Gas is just the latest thing making out-of-towners rich, and the gravy train is rolling strong. Our region produces 32.5 billion cubic feet of natural gas every single day. At the current price of $6.32 per thousand cubic feet, that is $205 million worth of gas every day and nearly $75 billion per year. And where does it all go? You wouldn't know it from walking around town here. We are supposed to have diamond streets, and we definitely don't. And yeah, a handful of 20-somethings are making six figures. Same for landowners with royalties. God knows that Halliburton has taken their pound of flesh. They were even nice enough to donate to local schools and build new football fields all over the place to keep us happy with this situation. But the water here ain't good. Raising your kids downwind from these frack pads comes with its own risk too. And it seems to me that pitting our hopes on a boom and bust industry that is headed for the dumps as the world moves to energy that won't kill us is not great for jobs either. But the thing that chaps my ass the most is that we have nothing else right now. We get all the industries that richer people kick out of their backyards, and we take it because it's better than nothing. so they say. But there is so much more that we are capable of in Appalachia, rebuilding the country to adapt to climate change that is barreling towards us, whether we like it or not, will not happen without blue-collar people and the skills they have. So stay tuned for another video on how similar communities use their blue-collar skills to...
I don't know what I like better, the report or the mustache. It's just fantastic.
I'm glad you can see it on camera. Thank you.
But I thought that was so powerful because, I mean, I think one of the biggest problems in media, people call for more diversity in terms of gender, race. Absolutely. But how about actual socioeconomic factors? We don't really see folks like you in the media doing reports from the deindustrialized Midwest talking about these issues. Talk to me about where you're from in Ohio and kind of what have you seen as time has gone on, basically what it used to be and kind of the evolution to what it is now.
Yeah, and you know, one of the issues that might come up in this broadcast is the internet is kind of still patchy here, despite decades of everybody talking about giving us high-speed broadband. So if there are issues, let me know, and we'll address that as best as possible. But I am currently in Bridgeport, Ohio. It is right on the Ohio River, next to Wheeling, West Virginia, next to Eastern Pennsylvania. It's one of those parts of the country where people are like, "Whoa, I didn't even know those states were close together." But I moved back here. I grew up here in Wellsville, Ohio, small town, same area. And, this region of the country forever has gotten all of the things that richer communities have kicked out of their own backyards. And these are the industries that keep the country going, but have a lot of bad products that come from their production. So, we led the country in coal production. We churned out all the steel. We made all the pottery that went all over the world. Fiesta ware comes from here. But one of the things that's really undercovered is our region's similarity to places like Houston, like Louisiana, the Gulf, Cancer Alley stretch. We have a lot of those same problems that don't really make it into the media. You can take a 30-mile drive here, and it's getting worse now, especially with what oil and gas wants to do. You can take a 30-mile drive, and on that drive, you'll pass Ohio's second largest coal-fired power plant that is still operating because of the money it got from a $61 million bribery scandal that took place in Ohio's legislature. It's the only reason why it's still operating. You'll pass one of the largest coal sludge waste lakes in the nation that is held back by an earthen dam, the kind that collapses all the time, and it's 1,000 feet from the Ohio River, a drinking water source for everybody. You'll pass WTI, which is the nation's largest hazardous waste incinerator. It's right next to a partial nuclear plant that's from the 50s. And the latest addition to this, and it's something we can really talk about here, is in Monaca, Pennsylvania. The Shell Corporation has built this really massive ethane cracker plant. And what that does is take that massive gas production coming from this region and is going to make it into more than 1 million metric tons of plastic pellets every year. This is part of...
I don't want to interrupt, but
Please.
The Ohio River Valley, infamously DuPont poisoned people with C8 chemicals, killed a lot of people, and nobody went to jail, but had record fines based on DuPont. There was a film about it, Dark Water, I think. So
Water, Dark Water.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the story of the region, and really it comes down to a lack of power here. Companies that are run by billionaires that are, sanctioned to operate by politicians that are bought off by billionaires take advantage of the low wages and the low worker power around here because we really don't have any compelling alternatives. So that leads us to be this kind of place that gets all of the industry that other people are rich enough to kick out. The latest of those is natural gas. Like I said in that video, they're taking $75 billion worth of gas yearly out from under our feet. This has been going on for 10 years. And like every industry that comes in. You know, look at the coal fields of Eastern Kentucky, look at the pump jacks that are in Midland, Texas. Extractive industry preys on workers that don't have power, but are sitting on top of natural resources everywhere. It's a story that's as old as the hills, and the latest place that it's really happening is right where I live. And it also happens to be a very politically interesting part of the country. Just real quick, and I'll wrap up here. The congressional district where I live is Ohio's 6th, and no other congressional district in the country has had a quicker or more intense shift from families who used to vote union working class Democrat to complete MAGA country and right-wing voting. So this extractive industry has kind of overlapped with a massive shift among working class families to reactionary politics. So that's what's all happening right where I live.
Yeah, the interesting thing, because I've been to Ohio a bunch and I've been to the Midwest quite a lot, is particularly in terms of fracking, we were told, because I froze my ass off in Standing Rock, I was there for 7 months on and off. Everybody's been told we have to frack because energy independence. And Obama was bragging at the end of his presidency, hey, we had more natural gas drilling under me than anybody else. But the minute there's a war between Russia and Ukraine, we have no oil. So I thought this was all for domestic energy use, and we had to poison Ohio. By the way, what was it? The Rover pipeline, from what I remember in Ohio, was leaking like a sieve. But actually, I was saying at the time, all of this was being sold to other countries. All of this was being exported to enrich the big oil companies. And now people are paying $5.50, $6, $7 out west. Can you kind of talk about your community? Basically, what you're describing is you guys are basically used as collateral damage, but you're not even reaping the benefits. America's not reaping the benefits of fracking.
Yeah, I mean, this is the same. Pick any place in America, anywhere that's really dominated by extractive industry, and it's the same thing. Workers crawl into a hole in the ground, they bring up the wealth, and it goes straight into the pockets of people that don't live here. It's happened everywhere. I mean, look at a similar community. We're right on the Ohio River. Places like Davenport, Iowa, right on the Mississippi River, Keokuk. All of these industrial communities, the workers are making wealth, be it agriculture in Iowa, shipping soybeans, growing soybeans and shipping them off to places that are not here, or the Ohio Valley, drilling natural gas and shipping it off to places that are not here and not enjoying any of the wealth. In fact, it's worse than that. Everybody's feeling pain at the pump right now, of course. But there are studies from EPI that show most of this inflation is driven by corporate profiteering. It's not even that the price of feedstocks, of supply chains, of crude oil are going up. It is the profit that's laid on top going straight into the bottom line of these companies. They exploit workers here. They take the wealth. They line their own pockets with it. But that's really been going on forever. But one of the things, the thing that's so frustrating here is that on the one hand, this is a massive problem, but on the other hand, it is a massive opportunity, right? Because we have this bank of blue collar skills: coal, steel, mining, gas, manufacturing. It's all right here. There's a community that I'm going to do another video on, really similar to Appalachia. It's called Centralia, Washington. It's a couple thousand people. It's a coal mining town. And they kind of showed another path to make a comeback for rural towns that were built on extractive industry. They didn't pin their hopes on a dying boom and bust industry that's going to go the way of the dodo bird as everybody realizes the scale of climate change. Instead, when their coal plant shut down, they reached an agreement that ended up generating $55 million worth of grant money to invest. And what they did with it is put that into industries with high labor overhead, right? So rebuilding buildings, windows, weatherization, energy efficiency things, public education, infrastructure. They took this money and rebuilt the entire town, put people to work doing it with the blue collar skills that they already have. There wasn't any other industry that they had to, lure in by giving away tax breaks or anything like that. And the result of it was that their job growth rate was twice that of the rest of the country. They added thousands of new jobs in a very small town simply by investing in those things that we need to do anyway to prepare for climate change, energy efficiency, rebuilding everything, revamping public education. That is really the way forward that could be a model for towns like the one that I live in, but it is guaranteed to be fought tooth and nail by people that say we simply have to drill for oil and gas. The fact is, not only do we not have to do that, but it's almost a death sentence to these towns that are barely hanging on if we continue to do that. And that's regardless of the climate change consequences.
And I also think it's important because I've seen it on the road. A lot of these communities where these pipelines are going through, fracking's going on, mining is going on. It's poor Black people, poor brown people, poor white people. A lot of these areas, I've been covering a story in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where a paper mill factory has been polluting the air. They have higher upper respiratory illnesses than the national average, than the Michigan average. And it's the same story in Ohio. I mean, I'm sure there's problems with asthma, other upper respiratory issues, cancers from air pollution, groundwater contamination. Can you kind of talk about the health problems separate from COVID in these areas due to these industries?
Yeah, it's all the things that you mentioned. We have cancer clusters. We have elevated rates of almost every chronic health condition. We have, soil, air, water pollution. Of course, there was I'm struggling to remember exactly where it was, but it was in the Ohio Valley. When things go wrong on a fracking well, they go really wrong. And there's a time when a single well was emitting as much methane as entire countries did over a year in 20 days because of an accident. And an unfortunate fact there too is that because of the death of local journalism, the consolidation by conservative media companies, Sinclair, the Ogden papers that are headquartered in Wheeling, West Virginia, there's not a lot of punchy, really hard journalism when a frack pad explodes and emits as much methane as a country. There's not a lot of people to cover that here. And so the residents in this area are subjected to industry abuse that they might not even know about. And that's on top of what we do know about the elevated cancer rates, clusters, the soil, air, and water pollution. There are so many angles of this thing that are really doing residents here unnecessarily dirty, especially when we have an alternative, which is employing the blue collar people here to rebuild their own towns.
Right. Absolutely. And I want to also talk about I think this connects to the political trends you're seeing. You're seeing that a lot of what they call the white working class, union folk, who decades ago was a Democratic Party stronghold, are fleeing to the Republican Party. We saw that in 2016, 10% of Obama voters switched to Trump. But you're seeing now still a lot of these union folks are gravitating towards Trump and the Republican Party. Can you kind of talk more about that?
Yeah, it used to win statewide in Ohio among politicos here. There used to be a slogan that, to win as a Democrat, you need to make 7, which is you need to win the counties along the top of Ohio by the lake. And then you need to win the ones that run down the river in the shape of a 7. That was the path to statewide victory, which ran right through this area that I'm talking about. And that was as recent as 15 years ago. It was almost a guarantee that if you were a Democrat running for office in the Ohio Valley, you were going to get in because you were on the side of the working class. But there needs to be some introspection here too, because not only are Democrats not brawling all out for the working class like they could be when we have problems that are so intense like this. I mean, minimum wage is still at $7. The median income has been stuck for decades. And this is against the backdrop of our billionaires, handfuls of them, adding, multiplying their fortunes, hundreds of billions of dollars. What are we really doing to fight that at a structural level? The people are not dumb around here. They can tell who's really swinging the bat for them and who's on their side. And unfortunately, the strategy in the statewide party has been to retreat from areas like this. And unsurprisingly, you've seen the right wing step in. The local TV station is owned by Sinclair. There are many Facebook groups here of the variety that even generated, Capitol rioters on January 6th. I'm thinking about a man I grew up with that I knew, a local wrestling coach who ended up on the front page of the New York Times for storming the Capitol. Those kind of people in the place of local journalism that used to, survive here. I've started Facebook groups and really radicalized the folks around here with a lot of misinformation at the same time that the Democratic Party has retreated from the area and that the National Party, with a trifecta right now, is arguably not brawling for the working class to the scale of the problems that are squeezing the working class. If we want to turn that around, then we have to get bold about our politics.
And that's why frauds like J.D. Vance are probably going to become a senator. I mean, you look at him, I think he's got multiple mansions. He does. Basically funded by Peter Thiel, who's a billionaire scumbag. All right, maybe once upon a time, he, was like an everyman, but not so much anymore. But somebody like Tim Ryan running against him, I mean, what's he running on? He hasn't done anything to really fight for a minimum wage increase. Will never go against the Democratic Party publicly. Says he's a union guy, but I haven't seen him really leading the charge for the PRO Act. Tim Ryan is kind of just a symbol when you have such a weak or non-existent economic alternative. It's very easy to get sucked into this kind of faux populism from somebody like J.D. Vance.
Yeah, and really running against J.D. Vance should be a layup. People don't wear suits around here, and they can smell the stench coming off of people that do wear suits. J.D. Vance, where to even start with J.D. Vance? I actually traded emails with J.D. Vance back before Trump was elected, before his book, Hillbilly Elegy, became kind of a lens to view this political change that we're all going through. What I noticed most about that was back before it became about a famous book, before it became about Netflix deals or rubbing elbows with billionaire tech overlords, J.D. Vance was actually willing to, think kind of outside of the box and have a good faith conversation about how he and I, both growing up in very culturally similar areas, ended up on different sides of the political spectrum. But what's so clear to me is as he's gotten closer to power, he's really just sold any of that soul that came across in our email exchange for a chance to be in the United States Senate and to do the bidding of somebody like Peter Thiel. Now, around here, we were on the front lines of when NAFTA passed, when free trade wiped out all of our manufacturing base here. People feel it in their bones that Wall Street is not your friend. So running against somebody like J.D. Vance should really be a layup. This is a person whose campaign was irrelevant. They almost had no staff, and they were dragged out of obscurity by a $15 million infusion, which, by the way, is under investigation by the FEC,
right?
From a tech billionaire, right? So this guy is a self-admitted venture capitalist, lives in a $1.4 million mansion in the suburbs of Cincinnati, has a DC summer home that he goes on to rub elbows with powerful people, and is saying, I am on the side of the very people that made you unbolt your mills and ship them to places that are not here. That's the kind of people he's associating with right now. And if Tim Ryan keeps his focus on that, I hope he can live up to that. Then this should be an easy layup because people like J.D. Vance belong nowhere close to power.
Well, I can't see Tim Ryan doing that because Tim Ryan, I don't know. I don't really know. You asked me what is Tim Ryan's big thing? Whether you agreed with Bernie Sanders or not, it was Medicare for all. Frankly, he was Bernie Sanders and Trump had some overlap in support. Believe it or not, I would go to Trump rallies. I'd always be amazed. Trump supporters said, who's your number two? It wasn't Ted Cruz. It was Bernie Sanders. They didn't agree with him on everything, but he thought he was authentic, was on the same page as far as NAFTA, which you mentioned, and these free trade deals. But I don't really know what Tim Ryan is for other than we're going to fight for your reproductive rights and trans kids. And, he's got the Ukraine flag going, but economically, not much there. So overall, do you think that a lot of people in Ohio on policy actually are interested and open to more progressive economic, populist, whatever you want to call it, policies, if they are explained to them in a way that isn't susceptible to the socialist label and these kind of things?
Without a doubt. This is not peer reviewed or studied by a think tank or anything else, but I'm going to hazard a guess and say that what I'm about to say is even better evidence. In 1 hour, I will pick up my shift at the dive bar that I live above. This apartment is above a bar in Bridgeport, Ohio, and that's where pipeliners and everybody else here that has been here forever, sometimes never left, go to drink their beer. And I talk to them, and I don't hide my politics at all. And what I have found, talking left-wing politics in a dive bar in a very right-wing area, is that if you're personable, and of course it helps that you look like them, and I get a lot of a big boost from looking like I do. But what I've found, there is an intense layer, a crust of opinion that has been installed by a right-wing megaphone that's been operating for 40 years, 50 years, took billions of dollars to build. And those are all the intense culture war issues. And as soon as you punch through those, the politics are scrambled, they're suggestible, and people are pissed at how they've been done dirty by this economy. And they know that it is insane to think about a single person having $1 billion, let alone hundreds of billions of dollars, and hundreds or even 1,000 people having that much money. When you really get to them and you connect on that level, you can see people's wheels start turning. How does one person end up with $1 billion? Could it be that in the industries where they make that kind of money, that they're relying on workers exactly like you to go in and get the coal, to go in and dig up the gas, and then line their own pockets with it? Could it be that we have a system of mass exploitation that's reliant on essential workers who just spent an entire pandemic being forced into work and dealing with the health ramifications of that? Could it be that those people are making the money for a handful of folks at the top? That is present in my dive bar. I talk about it every day. And I think when we have leaders who laser focus on that and place the blame where it belongs on Wall Street, a new kind of politics is possible here, especially if we take a page from the right wing and build our own media networks and talk about this constantly and really agitate that the working class of this country, no matter how you voted, no matter your race or gender, the working class, if you have to get up and go to work in the morning, are getting a bum deal. I think if we rebuild the party on that, then there's something to be had.
And if we actually had elected progressives who would do more than send, gentle nudgy letters to President Biden, but would actually rally outside the White House and activate the progressive base. I mean, I'm a Bernie guy, I always have been, but it's been disappointing. A little too much inside baseball, too much diplomacy. I think Bernie, the squad should have been out holding rallies in West Virginia, holding rallies in Arizona, should have been, demanding Biden cancel student loan debt, rallying their troops, not just to be outside the White House for a day. Park your ass out there. People were being evicted. during the pandemic. I think the progressives that a lot of people fought to get elected have been doing a little too much tweeting and magazine covers and not enough activism and organizing.
That's
very,
fair.
very angry base.
Let me make a point on that too, because I'm right next to West Virginia. I make a point to go out and cover union strikes when they're happening. In Huntington, West Virginia, a company called Special Metals, which is the largest manufacturer of alloy parts for airplanes, the defense industry. They're a very important company. They're owned by Warren Buffett. And the United Steelworkers represents the workers there. They went out on strike because they were facing exponential increases in healthcare. The company was really trying to squeeze the workers. They're on strike all through this winter, through Christmas, through New Year's. I went down on the picket line to cover what was happening. And guess who I saw there? It wasn't Joe Manchin. Who it was the local Republican state senator on the picket line in West Virginia handing out hot dogs to steel workers. Okay, if you are Joe Manchin and workers in your state are on strike at a billionaire-owned company and you can't even so much as issue a statement at the same time that Republicans are out there handing out hot dogs, it really shows you where the priorities lay. And of course, we're going to get the politics that we have when that's the situation. If we want to change it, we have to be showing up where workers are going on strike and really brawling for the working class. These issues are not going to wait. They're only, as we've seen from the Supreme Court, they're only going to get more intense, and that requires a scaling up of our politics to meet the issues.
Absolutely. This might be destiny here, because I've been looking for a good old Heartland reporter type to cover some of these issues. So we might have to talk. Real quick, before we let you go, can you kind of talk about essentially what's going on in Ohio and other places like it, where there's a rightward drift because we don't have an alternative economically on the left? It's helping kind of authoritarians. I mean, as we speak, the January 6th hearing is going on. There's apparently breaking news in that hearing. Let me just make sure I have it right. They read off all the Republicans that asked for pardons from Donald Trump. Let me make sure I have the list right. Hold on. Yeah, so apparently after January 6th, Matt Gaetz, Mo Brooks, Andy Biggs, Scott Perry, Louis Gohmert, Marjorie Taylor Greene asked for pardons. Jim Jordan, also from Ohio, asked for a pardon, and Gaetz asked for a pardon for any and all things, probably about his underage.
Looks like he covered it there.
Yeah. So you got the big ones are Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jim Jordan, and some others. My question to you, and that's a big deal, by the way, all these Republicans asking for a pardon. We'd like to know what specifically were you asking for a pardon for?
Doesn't exactly imply innocence,
Right. Like to see your messages, communications with Trump at the White House. But to me, I don't want to oversell it, but obviously fascism is usually breeds from economic rot, economic hopelessness, economic anger. How do you see what you're seeing in places like that, where you're from, basically enabling the rise of these kind of authoritarian figures, whether it be Trump, Ron DeSantis is a quieter autocrat, and other Republicans?
I think that should probably be at the top of our list of concerns. It is very real. I mean, one of the reasons why I moved back here was, I spent nearly a decade close to here, but away from here. But, I grew up here and I've always cared about what's going on here. My parents are still back here. It's where I'm from. And over the last decade, I watched, it comes back down to those Facebook groups. I watched, moms that babysitted me that literally cut the crust off of my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches being radicalized in these Facebook groups. A person that I knew, like I mentioned, ended up on the front page of the New York Times for going down and storming the Capitol. This is one of the largest problems that we face right now. And we will go down that path. We are headed down that path. And we won't get off of that path until there are real material solutions to the problems of working class people right here. Because, you know, whether we like it or not, the right wing has a massive megaphone that is 24/7 and on every device, and they can name villains, whether they are correct or not, for all the problems that people face when they walk out of here. I graduated in a class of 55 kids in Wellsville Public High School. And more than 10 of the people that I went to high school with, in my class and out of my class, but in the same year there, have passed away from opioid addiction, which we didn't even mention on the show yet, but is another thing. That's just to underscore the intensity of the social problems here is so great that the size of the right-wing megaphone puts us at real risk for people lurching in a reactionary direction and giving a rise to fascism. But that is only going to go on as long as we permit it. The way out of that I really believe is a true united working class movement, a laser focus on the cause of the problem, which is reins off capitalism, which is Wall Street and all of its schemes to pack up factories here, which is white shoe law firms defending Purdue Pharma as they pushed opioids into this area, and by the way, mocked people in a recent trial in West Virginia. All of these things have to be countered by somebody who can unite the working class and exercise their power over the industries that are controlling their lives right now. So we really need our leaders currently to step up for that, and we need a lot more rank and file, straight up working class organizing to save ourselves, which is what should really happen.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man, for taking the time. Everybody should check out John's channel on TikTok at Hey John Russell is his TikTok. Where else could people find you?
I run a newsletter, working class newsletter for rednecks and hippies, and it's called The Holler, TheHoller.co. Comes out every week. You can sign up there for free.
Rednecks and hippies. I love that. All right, cool.
Audience.
We'll put that in the description too, so people could check it out. And yeah, I'll be in touch. I love what you're doing, so we'll have to collaborate.
Amazing. Thanks for having me on, Jordan. I love your work too, and we will talk very soon.
All right. Take care, man.
You too.
So that was John Russell. Definitely check out his work. He did great video on fracking, showing how it did not create a boom for the folks there. Also has done great videos on unions and other things. I got another topic before we go. Let me read some super chats. John Ramsey, $10. Thank you very much. Tony Dallas, $10. Hey, Jordan, you are doing great work. Is there any way to have on a law professor? I think we need to explore court stripping as a legislative tool. It takes away SCOTUS authority on legislation. That is an interesting topic. I've never even heard of it. Can you email that to me? Or never mind, Colin, just save that super chat so I could look into it. Court stripping. Yeah, I'll try to have a legal expert on that. Big Dumb Animal, $5. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So I wanted to inform you, because we've covered Native American political prisoner Leonard Peltier, who has been in jail for 47 years. I've interviewed his attorney twice. Bernie Sanders strongly supports releasing Leonard Peltier from prison. Quote, I continue to support efforts to free him, the Vermont senator said of the 77-year-old indigenous rights activist in a new letter obtained by HuffPost. Bernie Sanders strongly supports releasing Native American rights activist Leonard Peltier from prison, according to a letter to a constituent obtained by the Huffington Post. Quote, as you know, Leonard Peltier has spent over 40 years of his life in prison, despite the fact that the government has admitted they do not know who is responsible for the crime he was convicted of, Sanders said in the June 8th email. Despite national and international campaigns to free Peltier, he remains incarcerated, where he continues to advocate for the rights of Native people. For this reason, I have and will continue to strongly support petitions for Leonard Peltier's release, Sanders concludes. A constituent passed the letter to the Huffington Post. Sanders' spokesperson confirmed its legitimacy, but did not provide further comment. The letter means that Sanders is the fourth U.S. senator in recent months to advocate for President Biden to give clemency to the now 77-year-old ailing activist and send him home. The others are Senator Patrick Leahy, also of Vermont, Brian Schatz of Hawaii, and Mazie Hirono of Hawaii. If you haven't heard of Peltier, think of him as America's longest serving political prisoner, a fall guy that the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office desperately needed after failing to figure out who murdered 2 FBI agents in a 1975 shootout on Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. And if you don't know about this, one of the lead prosecutors who convicted Peltier has since called for him to be released, saying basically they messed up and they don't actually have evidence that he fired the guns that killed these FBI agents. Full disclosure, I reached out to Bernie Sanders' press person weeks ago after I interviewed Peltier's lawyer, asking, does Bernie Sanders call for Leonard Peltier to be released? Because at the time, Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono became the 3rd U.S. senator. Sanders' spokesman didn't get back to me. So I don't know why Bernie is only responding to a constituent about this and hasn't publicly called for Biden to release Leonard Peltier. Peltier is not in good health. He had COVID. He now suffers from symptoms of long COVID, and he's 77 years old. So not only he should have never been in prison for this, but he should have been released by now. Let me play a part of my interview with his attorney, the second clip, Colin.
We all saw this coming. The COVID BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, has not done a great job of protecting those that are incarcerated. And look, it's a tough job. You've got a lot of people jammed into a small area, but they could have done a better job, and we saw it coming. They were slow to get vaccines out, and once they got the prisoners vaccinated, they were not getting the booster shots. I mean, this is a funny story, but it's all this kind of catch-22 scenario where I'm asking, what does it take to get a booster? You know, why are they not getting boosted? Well, the response is because you have to ask. Okay, who do we ask? How do I ask? What is your protocol for doing that? We can't tell you. Okay. What is this? Some scene from Joseph Heller novel. This is crazy. And so that Leonard in this scenario in this situation was finally contracted COVID. Shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone. What was difficult though was that I couldn't get any information. Their protocol, initially I was told he was put into a medical unit. What I learned was not a medical unit. He was put into an isolation cell in his unit. That's not the same as a medical unit. What they were doing was taking temperature once a day. Well, that's not treatment.
Right.
That's not caring for someone. It took days for him to get a cup so that he could drink water out of the sink. It took even longer for him to get a spoon so that he was being fed peanut butter in packets, to even get a spoon so that he's not trying to just chew on the packet and get some peanut butter out of there. That's not how you treat human beings. So basically he had to get through this himself, and eventually he did, luckily, because with his multiple health issues, he could have died, and no medical personnel would be surprised by that for someone his age and in his health to succumb to COVID. But he didn't, fortunately, and it was put back into the population. What he's told me is that there are prisoners there who won't tell staff that they've got COVID symptoms because they know that the response is you're going to go to an isolation cell and have your temperature checked. So they'd rather gut it out and stay where they are when you're actually in a better position. But then that puts everyone else at risk because now you're going to the chow hall or, mingling with other prisoners and just spreading COVID. Eventually, Leonard did get a booster shot, but it was after he had already had COVID, and he still has the effects from it. So, he's not in the shape that he was in while he was suffering through COVID, but, there are long COVID symptoms that still hang on, the fatigue and and the difficulty breathing, these kind of things that you typically hear about as kind of the after effects or continuing effects of COVID. He suffers from those. And, there's no, as we've learned from this disease, there's no guarantee that you don't get it again or again. So, the longer he stays in there, the more the greater likelihood is that he contracts COVID again. And with his health issues, does he survive?
77-year-old man has been in prison for 47 years. The prosecutor who prosecuted him has called for him to be released, saying, we fucked up. The only reason he's in prison is because the FBI doesn't want him out, because it would show that the FBI both corruptly, mainly corruptly, put this Native American man in prison without any evidence. There were a whole lot of other irregularities in the trial, constitutional violations of Leonard Peltier. He should be out of prison, and reparations should be paid to him for the 47 years he has been in prison. I appreciate that Bernie, wrote to a constituent that Leonard Peltier should be released. How about publicly demanding the president use his clemency power? Biden ran on all these nice words to Native Americans, and we're going to do this and that for you. How about releasing the longest serving Native American, but just any political prisoner in the United States? It's insane. Absolutely insane. I don't know if I still have the comment, but Michael Cooper said, maybe they'll let him out to make room for Assange. So sad, but so true. So sad, but so true. And by the way, let's take a look here. And I didn't cover this because the hearings were going on while I'm live. In the January 6th hearings today, in addition to the Republicans that asked for pardons, again, I read them out to you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan of Ohio, Louis Gohmert, Mo Brooks. I'm probably forgetting one or two, but some well-known Republicans asked Trump for pardons. I wonder why. I'd like to see their text messages and communications. What were they asking for pardons for? Matt Gaetz apparently asked for pardons for anything and everything because he was basically a pedophile, having sex with teenagers. But essentially, in this hearing also, we already kind of suspected this. It was confirmed that Trump asked the Department of Justice to seize the voting machines, to basically change votes. So how is it that is not a crime? That is not prosecuted. The president of the United States demanding that his Department of Justice seize the voting machines, right? Not to look at them, to change votes, but Leonard Peltier is languishing in prison in his final years. He had health problems before he got COVID. Now he got COVID. He's still suffering with long COVID symptoms. He can't be released. Julian Assange, for the crime of releasing and exposing war crimes, he's going to be imprisoned in the United States, very likely. Not to mention all the black people that languish in prison today because Bill Clinton and Joe Biden created the crime bill, which has black people still in prison for nonviolent offenses. I mean, I could go on and on. Look at the people that are prosecuted and the people who get away scot-free. Terrible. Before we go, I want to show a preview of Let's Get Ready to Grumble. Let's Get Ready to Grumble, Steve Grumbine's show on Status Coup. I'm pretty sure we're going to air it tomorrow. Let's show a preview.
You have some really cool ideas on the concept of communication and for breaking these ideas down for different audiences. What are your thoughts on the current climate, man? What do we do here, man?
Well, of course, I don't have all the answers, but in regards to the elections, I have some thoughts that might be a little unconventional for a less initiated American audience, but will be very straightforward for people who have spent a lot of time on the left. And that is, I think, it's not just the American left, but since we're an American audience predominantly, let's talk about the American left. Is the American left right now, for what it is, focuses way too much on elections. And this is not from a anarchist, never vote, don't participate in politics, tune in, drop out, whatever. This is not what I'm saying. But it is not particularly wise to focus on elections when you don't have a popular movement behind it. So you have to build the movement first, and the elections can only ride on that movement. You can't build a movement through the election.
So that is Steve Grumbine with an activist talking about outside electoral politics strategies and movement building. I believe we're going to air that tomorrow. I don't know the time yet. We're kind of moving some things around. Make sure you are on Status Coup's text list. That's statuscoup.com/text. If you're on the text list, you probably got a different number, a text from a different number. It's not spam. Our text number changed, so click on it. But make sure you sign up for Status Coup's text list so you'll get a text message when we're live, both when I'm live and when Steve's videos premiere, because YouTube only gives us 3 notifications a day. And frankly, half the time they don't even send the notification. So we will we'll be airing Steve either tomorrow or this weekend. I'm not sure yet. So stay tuned for that. But I'm looking forward to that. He did an hour interview with that activist on movement building, which doesn't sound like a sexy topic, but is very important if we want to get any type of structural change. Let me remind you, Status Coup is really, really trying to continue our on-the-ground reporting. I just did physical therapy today. I have a tear in my ACL. That's part of why I haven't been on the road as much. But right now I'm trying to plan another reporting trip. Possibly, definitely in July. It would be, I don't know how soon, but it would be in July. We need more people to sign up as members. So consider signing up as a Status Coup member, statuscoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Also, hey folks, if you're a member, get your ass in the Discord. There's not enough chatter going on in the Discord. Every time I go in there, it's silent. Part of it's my fault because I haven't been in there enough. I see Michael Cooper and a couple other people. But if you were a Status Coup member, you have access to our Discord. If you don't know how to get into the Discord or you need an invite, email us, info@statuscoup.com, info@statuscoup.com, and Colin will set you up with Discord access. I want more people talking. No fighting if we can. But I'll be in the Discord more because, hey, we want to build a community here outside of just the live stream. So if you're a member, get into the Discord. It's a perk of membership. Colin, do they have to do anything or they just get the link automatically?
They should get it automatically if you're on a member on the new website, statuscoupmember.com. Then on the member benefit page where you see all of your normal member stuff, there's a big old Discord picture and you click on that. If you have any issues, though. Yeah,
if you have any issues, email Colin. He's our resident customer service professional because I don't want to deal with it. Thank you. But also tomorrow, Colin doesn't know this. Ron Placone will be guest hosting. 5 o'clock Eastern time. So tune in tomorrow night, 5 o'clock Eastern. Ron Placone of the Ron Placone Show. He will be guest hosting at 5 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night. So I'm looking forward to that. But we definitely want to get more people in the Discord, so get in there. I'm in there as much as I can, but I'll get in there more. My wife jumps in here and there, oftentimes defending me, but oftentimes saying funny things. Colin's in there from time to time too. So, hey, if you're a member, sign up. Sign up as a member and then join us in the Discord, talk politics. I know people talk movies and other things sometimes, so it's a lot of fun. All right, thanks, folks, for watching. Really appreciate it. Guest hosting or guest bartending? Well, Ron is getting over COVID, so I don't think he'll be drinking on air, but who knows? I don't know. It's up to Ron if he wants to do that. So thanks for watching, folks, and we'll have other videos. I have an interview with Harvey K., who is a New Deal historian, so we'll be airing that tomorrow. I also have an interview with Amazon workers in North Carolina. We'll be airing that tomorrow or this weekend. So a lot of good stuff coming up. Please sign up, statuscoup.com/join, statuscoup.com/join. And James Fox, you must set up an account after download. Yes. To join our Discord, you have to sign up. You have to set up an account. That's right, Colin, right?
Yeah, you have to have a Discord account to join.
Yeah. So register for Discord. I think it's free. I'm pretty sure it's free to get it. Discord is basically a chat. That's all it is. Think like if you're old like me, like AOL, like AIM, the chat rooms in AOL, which were the fun of my youth. It's basically the same thing, only cooler. So anyway, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. See you tomorrow.